believe the same staff, yeah. How much time would you need?
15 minutes, please.
Okay, you got it.
Would you like us to reintroduce ourselves, or?
Introduce yourself just for
so
the
I'm
record.
Mike Hansen, Director of the Planning Department, and to my left is Michael Prinz, Senior Planner in the Planning Department, and to my right is Claudia Brizuela, Associate Traffic Engineer in the Planning Department, and we're here before you today, and we're excited to present the Morena Corridor Specific Plan.
Thank you. And I'll just ask, as folks are exiting, please do it quietly. We're still in session. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Council President and Council members. Michael Prinz, Senior Planner with the Planning Department, presenting the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. The specific plan implements the general plan City of Village's strategy by increasing housing in a transit priority area, improving bicycle and pedestrian access to the trolley station, and capitalizing on the Mid-Coast Trolley Extension. The specific plan implements the Climate Action Plan's land use strategy by allowing for transit-oriented development, increasing multifamily density within a transit priority area, shifting mode share via improved connections in a street grid network, balancing modes to improve bicycle safety, and prioritizing the circulation network. The specific plan encompasses approximately 280 acres along Morena Boulevard between Gessner Street and Friars Road within Claremont and Linda Vista. The specific plan establishes 5 districts to guide the form and character envisioned for each district. There are no changes to proposed land uses within Claremont, as a comprehensive update to the community plan is currently in process. The specific plan would allow for a significant increase in housing capacity. Currently, there are 996 dwelling units within the specific plan area. The adopted community plan would allow up to 1,386 dwelling units, and the proposed specific plan would allow for a build-out of 7,016 dwelling units, increasing the capacity within the area by more than 5,600 dwelling units. The specific plan establishes a land use and mobility framework that would transition an auto-oriented commercial and industrial corridor into a mixed-use, transit-oriented village and employment-related uses connected by an improved street system. The proposed land use map increases densities in areas closest to the trolley stations and where significant roadway extensions and improvements are identified. It establishes a transition between higher density residential areas and nearby single-family neighborhoods by maintaining current land uses in the design district, and it maintains a majority of the industrially designated lands within the plan area, which is identified as a sub-regional employment area in the general plan. The Morena Station District is directly adjacent to USD and the Morena Linda Vista Trolley Station, and is envisioned as a village that provides transit-oriented development, allowing up to 73 dwelling units per acre, and completes the grid network through roadway extensions and realignments. The Tecolote Village District incorporates high-density housing, up to 109 dwelling units per acre, with a mix of uses to support residents, employees, and visitors of the district. The specific plan's land uses are proposed to be implemented through the use of citywide zoning, with supplemental development regulations that primarily address building height and mobility improvements. In Linda Vista, the plan would require discretionary review for any project that exceeds 45 feet. Currently, building heights within the Linda Vista portion of the specific plan area are addressed in the community plan and implemented through the community plan implementation overlay zone. Today, building heights are allowed up to 30 feet through a ministerial review process and up to 45 feet through a discretionary review process. The specific plan would allow building heights up to 45 feet in all 4 Linda Vista districts through a ministerial review process. Within the Morena Station District, the specific plan would allow building heights up to 65 feet through a discretionary review process, and in the Tecolote Village District, building heights would be allowed up to 100 feet through a discretionary review process. The plan also maintains the Claremont Mesa height limit overlay zone, which limits building heights to 30 feet. In response to comments received at the Planning Commission workshop and through meetings with the community, we have prepared conceptual renderings of development within the villages as seen from various vantage points. The first rendering is a view of the Tecolote Village from the Tecolote Road Bridge. This is a view from the bridge looking southeast toward the Tecolote Village taken earlier this year. The trolley station is currently under construction. For context, the A1 self-storage and Jerome sign on the left side of the screen is approximately 55 feet tall. This conceptual rendering shows potential development that incorporates design measures consistent with specific plan policy. The second vantage point was taken from Dorcas Street within Overlook Heights. The difference in elevation between many of the homes in Overlook Heights and the Tecolote Village is approximately 50 feet. This particular vantage point is taken at an elevation of approximately 75 feet above the Tecolote Village. This is the existing view from Dorcas Street overlooking Overlook Heights, overlooking the village area. The views in this area are primarily southwest toward the Midway community and Loma Portal. In the center of the screen behind the palm trees is the sports arena. Future development projects will be required to incorporate architectural features to improve visual quality and street frontages as shown in this conceptual rendering. For the Morena Station District, we chose a vantage point within Overlook Heights looking south toward the village. The difference in elevation between this area of Overlook Heights and the Morena Village is approximately 75 feet. This is the current view of the Morena Station District. And finally, this is a conceptual image which depicts building massing with heights up to 65 feet. The proposed mobility network of the specific plan will establish a modified grid network in Linda Vista to enhance pedestrian, bicycle, and transit mobility and connectivity, while also addressing vehicular traffic capacity. The plan recommends reclassifying Morena Boulevard within Claremont to enhance pedestrian and bicycle facilities. The current roadway configuration represents challenges for all modes, with transitions at Linda Vista Road and along Morena and West Morena Boulevard that can cause confusion for motorists, limits pedestrian crossings at major intersections, and confusion for bicyclists as well. There are high traffic volumes concentrated around the Linda Vista, Morena, and Napa Street triangle, which creates congestion and difficulty for all users. The proposed roadway configuration would establish a modified grid to alleviate congestion and improve connectivity for all users. This is a conceptual rendering of the Morena Boulevard extension with new development fronting the street. Overall, the grid system would improve mobility by relieving congested roadways, reducing confusion, and improving safety for all modes. This street-level rendering depicts the mobility improvements, including the two-way cycle track on the west side of the road. Within Claremont, the specific plan proposes to improve mobility, primarily along Morena Boulevard and Claremont Drive. The current plan identifies Morena Boulevard as a 4-lane major, though it currently operates as a 3-lane roadway due to construction of the trolley. A key component of the specific plan mobility network is the proposed cycle track along Morena Boulevard. This facility is part of a 3.3-mile regional bicycle facility that connects to 4 trolley stations. The cycle track would establish a key connection that would link to the Rose Canyon Bikeway and facilities in Mission Valley and Midway Pacific Highway communities. The specific plan proposes to reclassify Morena Boulevard as a 3-lane collector. The roadway would maintain the 2 northbound travel lanes and would reconfigure southbound travel to allow for 1 travel lane and a center turn lane. The existing right-of-way would be repurposed to enhance pedestrian and bicycle facilities by creating a 2-way cycle track on the west side of Morena and an enhanced sidewalk on the east side of the street. As previously mentioned, the 2-way cycle track would connect to the Tecolote, Claremont, and Balboa trolley stations and would provide a 3.3-mile continuous buffered bicycle facility along the corridor. The 3-lane collector maintains vehicle capacity for motorists while significantly improving pedestrian and bicycle access along the corridor. At the March Land Use and Housing Committee meeting, the committee voted to recommend Morena Boulevard be reclassified to a 4-lane collector roadway with enough room for a cycle track. City Council has the option to adopt a 4-lane collector configuration for Morena Boulevard as recommended by the committee. However, staff recommends the 3-lane configuration because there is not enough right-of-way along Morena Boulevard to accommodate 4 lanes and all of the pedestrian and bicycle amenities identified in the plan that will help meet our climate action plan goals and objectives. A 4-lane configuration would result in the removal of more than 70 parking spaces along Morena Boulevard. It would not allow for an expanded sidewalk and shade trees near restaurants and shops, and it would require a reduced buffer between the cycle track and southbound vehicle traffic. Community outreach for the specific plan was primarily conducted through the subcommittees of the Linda Vista and Claremont Mesa community planning groups. Each subcommittee held more than 15 meetings throughout the process to provide input on all components of the specific plan. City staff also hosted multiple pop-up engagement booths at community events to gather community input and engage residents in the planning process and bring awareness to the draft plan. The pop-up events provided an informal space for residents and stakeholders to participate in the process who may not have taken the opportunity otherwise. Both the Linda Vista and Claremont community planning groups voted to support a revised specific plan with conditions. The Linda Vista Planning Group voted to recommend postponing adoption of the specific plan until the council has provided a significantly greater inclusionary housing requirement than current law requires, or the specific plan be amended to require for all projects in the plan area providing a significant greater inclusionary housing requirement than current law requires. Previously, the group recommended a specific plan that provides 40% affordable housing on site, building heights of no more than 45 feet, density of no more than 30 to 44 dwelling units per acre, maintaining 4 lanes along Morena Boulevard, and further discussion with the community on infrastructure, off-street parking, and traffic. Claremont supports a specific plan that implements the low-density alternative, maintains the 4 lanes along Morena Boulevard, clearly states that the 30-foot Claremont Mesa height limit overlay zone is maintained, and prioritizes public infrastructure improvements, including the pedestrian and bicycle improvements, such as a bridge over Interstate 5. On February 21st, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the specific plan and provided additional direction. The additional direction from the Commission is provided in the staff report and includes support for a pedestrian bicycle bridge over I-5, additional urban design guidelines addressing building stepbacks for upper floors in village developments, and additional plan language addressing off-site stormwater alternative compliance. These recommendations have been incorporated into the specific plan. On March 6th, the Land Use and Housing Committee voted 3-1 to recommend approval of the specific plan, with Morena Boulevard reclassified as a 4-lane collector roadway with a 2-way cycle track. Additionally, the committee requested the city attorney provide an analysis on the opportunity to require on-site inclusion of 15% affordable housing for property designated community village. The city attorney's analysis is provided in the supporting documents for this item. The specific plan before you today includes added policies that encourage on-site affordable housing, the support for a pedestrian bicycle bridge over I-5, directs development to reduce the perceived scale of buildings from the street, and additional language to address off-site stormwater alternative compliance opportunities. The specific plan also clearly states that the 30-foot Claremont Mesa height limit overlay zone is maintained. Ultimately, the proposed specific plan would improve mobility through establishment of a grid network, increase housing capacity to address the current housing crisis, and allow design flexibility through increased building heights in the village areas. Staff recommends certification of the EIR and approval of the resolutions and ordinances to adopt the specific plan. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. We will now take up public testimony. Clerk, please proceed.
So we have a total of about 76 minutes of public testimony. So again, everyone will be limited to 1 minute per speaker slip. We will go with 30 minutes in opposition, then we'll switch over to 25 minutes in favor, and then we'll switch back to the final speakers in opposition. We'll begin with a 15-minute presentation by former Assembly Member Howard Wayne. And Assembly Member, you have time donated to you by Mike Rainey. Is Mike here? Thank you. Ellen Quigley. Thank you. Teresa Bajo. Thank you. Let's see. Tom Salawanchik. Thank you. Kurt Martin. Wonderful. Jeanette Faust. Margaret Van Blaricom. Wonderful. Candace Thiem. Or Thiem. Thank you. Michael it looks like Shakowski. Thank you. Nancy Shakowski. Leroy Hughes. Is Leroy here? Okay, I don't see Leroy. Sorry, say it again. He left, thank you. Rolando Ogat, thank you. And Teresa Ogat. Okay, you've got a total of 14 minutes, sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon, members of the council, Mr. Clerk, Madam Chair. I am Howard Wayne, and I'm here on behalf of the Linda Vista Planning Group, of which I am the chair of the ad hoc committee on this specific plan. And I want to start by making a correction. At no time has the planning group voted to approve the plan, contrary to the apparent representation this afternoon. But we are here today to ask for more affordable housing. The city attorney has written that the council has the option to set forth a higher inclusionary housing requirement in a specific plan than is in a general ordinance. This specific plan is in a transit priority corridor, and the plan should be amended to provide for more affordable housing, particularly including housing for the missing middle. I'd like to sort of say, where are we right now? Regardless of what version of the plan is adopted, there will be greater density, there will be greater height, regardless. So we know that much. We know the trolley is going to come through here, and the concept of the trolley, or the concept of greater density along the trolley, is really twofold. Mobility will be improved, number one, and number two, we will get people out of their cars. An excellent idea. The trolley represents a multi-billion-dollar investment of taxpayer dollars that will enhance the value of the land along the corridor. And I want to point to the council chair's comment. The public should be able to capture some of the value of this enhanced value capture created. Let me talk to the third point. That is the affordable housing crisis in San Diego. As we have studied over the past few days, the market is delivering just fine for the top 1/3, but not so well for everybody else. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers are being forced out of the housing market in San Diego. Many of our family members are moving elsewhere because of the cost of housing. And then specifically to Linda Vista. Historically, this has been a diverse and working class area. Now, based on what you do today, the decisions you reach today, we can look at a couple of different possibilities, a couple of different options as what will happen. If you simply adopt the plan as proposed, what will come out of it is 7,000 or so market rate units. Those who can afford market rate units often own one or more cars and are more likely to drive than they are to use the trolley. So if contrast, moderate income people are likely to use mass transit if it is available. For this reason, the plan, as proposed by not having moderate housing, would undermine and defeat the climate action plan, because fewer people would be riding the trolley, more people would be driving. It would also have the effect of gentrification in the area, because housing that is not affordable means that working people will have fewer options, and the diversity of the community will decrease. That's not to say there won't be winners. The current landowners will receive a tremendous windfall by taking advantage of the public investment in the trolley and the increase in height and density. And that will allow them to extract even greater dollar value from the property. Those are not good. That's a bad outcome. Let's talk about a good outcome. We're talking about we should be contributing to solving the affordable housing crisis in San Diego, improving and activating and implementing the Climate Action Plan, and reducing greenhouse emissions in the area. And if we do that, the winners will be the city, the Linda Vista community, working people, and the environment. Let me say what's been said about the idea of increased affordable housing. Environmental Health Coalition, when it argued in support of the Climate Action Plan, said that housing in transportation corridors should be 50% affordable. That's 50 affordable. The ad hoc committee of the Linda Vista Planning Group, as specified earlier, urged that we use a 40% affordability, which is the objective that is being used in the Bay Area. The Linda Vista Planning Group, in a letter that was sent to each of you, said that it unanimously voted to urge the City Council to amend the MCSP to provide for greater levels of inclusionary, affordable workforce housing than are set out in the pending inclusionary housing ordinance. So I'm going to set out what are the three elements to make this good outcome possible. Number one, we should get 15% inclusionary housing in the project area. This is the presumptive limit of Assembly Bill 1505, number one. Number two, an additional 15% requirement for those above 80% to 120% of AMI. This is the missing middle. This is wholly consistent with the ordinance that was adopted 2 days ago, because that did provide for 80 to 120% AMI. It provided it as a density bonus. But here, the plan already provides that density bonus. A higher density is built into the plan. So, all that we're asking for is what you did Tuesday. That is, you've given them, if you approve this, the density bonus, give us what the other half would be, the affordable housing for the missing middle. I know that the pro tem raised the issue of amending a prior motion to include inclusionary housing. And the response from the city attorney's office was that the documents would not be ready. I would offer my thought that if they're not ready, they can be made ready, and if this is important, this motion should be, or the plan should be postponed until that language is in place and taken up at that point. Now, those who are supporting the plan as is, they can be of several other types, and some have already testified here, but many have testified at other bodies. Some of them are the same people who came out in opposition Tuesday to the inclusionary housing proposal. They're the people who can't or won't build inclusionary housing, which makes a question, why are we trying to get housing in this area if we can't make it affordable to people? Another group are those who speak of the need to provide housing for teachers and nurses and first responders. I agree with them. Let's see if they actually mean it by supporting our proposal. And then there's a third group who are idealistic, and despite their idealism, do not see affordable housing as a priority. Now, in fact, this is your decision, not theirs, and that is how your record will be judged. So I'm asking here on behalf of the planning group to amend the plan to provide for greater affordable housing that will justify the taxpayers' investment in the trolley. It will improve the environment. It'll show your commitment to the Climate Action Plan, and it will make a real contribution to affordable housing. I can urge and I can stand here But ultimately, the direction that will go on, that decision is yours. Thank you for your attention.
Our next speakers are George Henderson, followed by James Lamattery, followed by Lisa Norquist Johnson.
Hi. I was surprised to see that the removal of a traffic lane on Morena Boulevard is back in the picture. I was surprised to see that the Land Use Committee recommendation was ignored, but maybe not surprised. That's what they do to us all the time. What I'd like to propose is gathering some real-life empirical data instead of dealing with wild-ass guesses. What if we use some K-Rail and create a real safe Class 4 bicycle track on Morena Boulevard for like the 2 years after the trolley is inaugurated? Let's see how it works. If we get 500, let's say 500 bicycle round trips daily, wow, we're doing good. What if there's no traffic problem? Great, but what if automobile traffic backs up in a way that the emissions that are created by congestion exceed the emissions saved by bicyclists?
You, sir.
Thank you very much.
James Lamattery, followed by Lisa Nordquist Johnson, and then we will move to speakers in favor, beginning with Kristen Victor.
Good afternoon.
One second,
members.
I'm sorry, James. You have time seated by Nita Cole. Is Nita here? Thank you. Jean Levins. Thank you. Connie Wagner. Thank you. Morteza Rahimi. Thank you. Gavin Simarco. Is Gavin here? Thank you. Okay, yes, that's right. So that's 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you. So my name is James Lamattery, and I am the spokesperson for Raise the Balloon. And I've been working with this community for over 5 years to help develop these plans. You know, I want to echo Howard Wayne's comments about affordability, and I want to drive this down to the ground a little bit. I sell real estate, and I'm really excited about the YIMBYs that want more housing. I would love to sell them more housing. The reality is, the bummer is, they're not going to be able to afford it in this area. This area is bay and ocean view location. When I take clients out, I have to give them the reality of what they can buy, what they cannot buy. This plan needs to be postponed. I'm going to go a little further than Howard did. As drafted, the plan falls, both plans, by the way, Balboa Pacific and the Morena, both fall miserably short of providing the amount of affordable housing necessary to make them work. What's worse, because of the in-lieu fee option, nothing in them requires developers to build any on-site affordable housing. So what I've heard from the developers is that they're going to use the in-lieu fee option and they're going to build luxury units. Yet affordable housing is crucial to the success of the plans because without it, dense luxury rentals will dominate our transit areas, defeating the purpose of building housing that people can afford around transit we hope they'll use. The city staff wants to upzone existing low-density parcels. But upzoning under the current citywide inclusionary guidelines will only encourage gentrification while providing a windfall to developers who will maximize rents due to our bay and ocean views. To make sure that the plans provide for the type of housing we need, the community requested changes to the inclusionary housing program that would remove the in-lieu fee option and raise the amount of affordable housing units in projects built around the new trolley stations. City staff insisted that the draft plan was not the venue for such a change and that the current in-lieu fee structure would prevail in the draft. It wasn't until after the community planning group recommendation process was concluded that the subcommittee discovered that separate, specific inclusionary guidelines can be adopted for specific plan areas. On May 9th, the city attorney confirmed that the specific plan areas can adopt guidelines different from the citywide. The good news is that you can help us fix this. You have the power to postpone the approval of these draft plans until the community can work with this council in drafting a new and separate affordable housing ordinance for these specific plans. The ordinance needs to restrict the upzoning unless we secure the guarantee that enough affordable housing will be built. And what we're talking about is not, as the city has stated, staff stated here and put into the plans, that they encourage that a bridge will be built, that they encourage affordable housing. We want a guarantee. Affordable housing can no longer be left to the discretion of developers, especially when we increase their profit margins by upzoning their properties or changing their land use designations. If you postpone the approval of these plans, we have a chance at making sure more affordable housing is built. But if you move the plans forward without removing the in lieu fee option and raising the amount of affordable on-site units, both plans as drafted will only ensure that more of the same unaffordable market rate housing will be built in an area that 70% of our city residents cannot afford. So we want housing, but if we can't make it affordable, what are we going to do? We need to challenge some of the options that we give to builders. The in lieu fee, obviously a contentious battle. It is inching our way towards affordable. Yeah, we need to increase the in lieu fee until we can really deal with the problem. And until we zone for affordable housing and remove the loopholes, we are not going to get it. And what we are going to become is San Francisco 2.0. Where the uber wealthy live in the city and all of the poor neighborhoods are being developed by big development coming in, pushing them out. We are not allowing the lower income families or the middle income families to buy housing in San Diego if we don't deal with this. I plead with you, postpone this plan, work with the community, and let's solve the affordability of the homes that will be built in this area. Thank you.
Lisa Nordquist Johnson, followed by Kristen Victor, followed by Maya Rosa. Lisa, you have time donated by John Wagner. Is John here? Thank you. Carol Schleisman. Thank you. Jeff Cole. Thank you. Karen Spencer. Thank you. Mel Spencer. Nancy Cole. Meredith Alcock. Is Meredith here? No. Okay, you've got a total of 7 minutes.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you everyone today for your time. I know this is a long meeting, and thanks everybody for coming out and donating me some time. I appreciate it. I've lived in Claremont for 19 years, and 11 of those years we've had a business on Morena Boulevard, so I'm very familiar with the area. I think it's obvious today from everything that you've heard that our community is well aware of the housing issue. We want to be part of the solution, and we're not against it. What we are against, what we're having a really big problem with, is growth implemented without adequate planning and funding for infrastructure and real mobility. Mobility for everyone. I had the privilege of being able to hear Sandag's mobility proposal to this area and for this area at a CCPG meeting. It was really nice presentation. They did a great job. There was illustrations and this and that. It was awesome. The problem was it was completely unrealistic and there was no funding. Taking a lane for scooters and bikes electrical golf carts to get those of us that live on the mesas down to the trolley and back. Fantastic if you're a millennial. If you are caretaking children or older people, if you got an 80-pound dog like I do, if you have a walker, gonna be a problem. When I asked the representatives from Sandag, hey, there's tens of thousands of us in this area that we got a car seat that we have to use in an EV. We've got a soccer bag, like I said, an 80-pound dog. This isn't functional. What do you suggest? Here's what she told me, and I quote, "Have you heard of hop, skip, jump?" For those of you that don't know, hop, skip, jump is an Uber service for children. So when I saw that Sandag's concepts for mobility for my segment of the population and the older segment of the population is to put my 11-year-old daughter in an Uber, not gonna work, kind of silly. That showed me that this plan is really ill-conceived and doesn't take care of mobility for everyone. I think there was a gentleman here earlier from the BIA who said planning is essential. I could not agree with him more. As a parent that has been active in our local schools, I've been on PTA, school site council, and site governance teams for almost a decade. I can tell you that a lot of the elementary schools that are going to take the density of what I think I added up to was, how much was it, Julie? Like 10, 12,000 multifamily units. Bay Park Elementary, Toller Elementary, Cadman Elementary. Some of those schools can handle a little bit of density, but not all of them. And when we look at the school ratio right now of 25 to 37 students per classroom, and the over $1 million per portable unit cost of one of those classrooms, I don't think the diff fees are gonna cover. And I know my wrapping paper sales and jogathons are not gonna cover. So as we move forward, and all of you are representing areas that are having to deal with this density issue, I understand this is just one part of that, but as we're moving forward, I ask that you guys pause and look at the bigger picture, because the more involved with this I've become, the more I realize there's a lot of entities not speaking to each other. I don't know if you guys know what the situation with the schools is in Claremont, but we're asked every year to bring pens, paper, and I don't mean line paper for my kids to write on, I mean printing paper for the office. This year, or the last couple of years, it's been cleaning supplies and tissues. We have some expenses to cover as it is, and with this density coming into these communities, yours included, that's infill, we're expecting you as your constituents to really be doing some oversight here and looking at the bigger picture of is the money there for this? Do we have the infrastructure we need to support this many students? You know, the mobility for everyone. But I ask you again to pause and look at the bigger picture of infrastructure, emergency services, fire, and real mobility for all of us to make sure it's funded and functional for the majority and completely solid. Because if it's not totally solid and you're not 100% sure that this mobility and infrastructure can be done, I don't see how we can vote yes for it. Thank you.
Moving now to speakers in favor. Kristen Victor, followed by Maya Rosas, followed by Nicole Burgess. Is Ms. Victor here? Kristen here? No? Thank you so much. Maya Rosas, Maya, followed by Matt Adams, followed by Stephanie Benevenuto.
Good afternoon. My name is Maya Rosas. I'm with Circulate San Diego. We support the plan as proposed, the land use and density, as well as the mobility element of this plan. And I'm here to focus on the mobility element. This plan is vital in the effort to help the city meet its climate, housing, and transportation goals as outlined in the CAP and the City of Villages strategy. Circulate does not support the recommendation from Land Use and Housing to reclassify Morena from a 3-lane collector to a 4-lane collector. The added lane will increase motor vehicle capacity and decrease the space committed to creating safe bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in this plan. We cannot meet our citywide CAP and Vision Zero goals if every opportunity we get, we have the option to build world-class bike and pedestrian infrastructure, but instead we choose something less than. Thank you.
Matt Adams, followed by Stephanie Benvenuto, followed by Andy Henshaw.
Good afternoon, Matthew Adams again with the BIA here in strong support for this plan and for the years that it's taken to get to this point. We have such a dire housing crisis, we have to increase our supply. These type of plans will make that happen. They'll make that happen now. And this is a plan that should be supported. It's been thoroughly vetted. It's been years in the making. All of the talk you've heard about density and affordability and inclusionary, remember, that's not what the ask was from some of these people you heard before me. The ask was, don't do anything. That's the intention of those who are opposed to this plan. This plan has been vetted for years. It is an important step to addressing our housing crisis. Do not be fooled by that ruse. Thank you very much.
Wait. Okay, folks in the audience, I will ask to please keep your comments to yourself. This is about respect, whether you agree with it or not. Just please be respectful to every single public speaker when they're speaking on the mic, please. Thank you. Or if you're not, you're going to be asked to leave this room.
So we got Stephanie Benvenuto, followed by Andy Henshaw, followed by Philip Ballou.
Good afternoon again. I am here in support, but I am very, very excited about this particular plan because I live in this community, so this is very personal for me. You're a friendly neighborhood millennial. And I just want to say that by increasing the volume of homes in this area, we'll have less pressure that drives up the cost of homes. The density is necessary to help us combat the fact that the crisis is driven out of scarcity. The challenges of building housing, particularly affordable housing, which we're talking so much about, is often made much worse by community opposition. You can look up the hill from this planning area and see that some of the communities are having an absolute conniption about having permanent supportive housing in their neighborhoods. So I would be very careful about how we approach that. Claremont is a great neighborhood, and I will welcome my neighbors, and I look forward to this plan's adoption. Thank you.
Andy Henshaw, followed by Philip Ballou, followed by Perry Deely.
Good afternoon, Andy Henshaw with the Bike Coalition. Here to offer our strong support for the staff recommendation, especially the 3-lane collector option for the most protected and safest option for the 2-way cycle track. Extremely important for connectivity to 3 trolley stations and closing gaps in a network in a very dangerous auto-centric corridor right now. So as it was stated before, we need to continue to do the good job that we are doing in the city, implementing our climate action plan, reaching our goals, shifting modes, and we need that with this 3-way option, 3-lane collector and the 2-way cycle track with as much space as possible. Thank you.
Philip Ballou.
Hey, what's up? I'm Phil. I'm a Linda Vista resident, regular bike rider along Morena Boulevard, and I support the max amount of density possible with the Morena plan, the cycle track, and I want to make sure that we emphasize that 3 lanes is what I think will be best on this particular segment of Morena Boulevard here, allowing people to be able to focus on bike infrastructure, access to the trolley station. It's interesting because when people talk about the density, I always think about how when I'm driving or riding my bike out of Linda Vista, right as I'm leaving, I see this sign that says, "Leaving Linda Vista, the people make our community great." And I can't help but think how exciting that is, because when I welcome more and more and more people into my community, how great we can make this entire community with more and more great members of my community. Thank you so much, Council.
Next, we have an organized presentation with Perry Deely and Kevin Henley, and they have time donated to them by Taylor Jarekwi. Is Taylor here? Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Brian Castor, thank you. Paul Brown. Thank you, Paul. Ellen Ketter. Thank you. Julius Paskey. Thank you. Alex Pfeiffer. Thank you. And James Harrison. Is James here? Thank you. Got a total of 9 minutes.
Kevin Heinley's here, but he won't be part of the presentation.
Okay.
He raised his hand.
No worries, you got it.
First of all, Council President and members of the City Council and those in the audience, thank you very much for the opportunity for us to present somebody that actually builds projects and somebody that actually can create some of the amenities that I think everybody would love to see in any community, especially in Linda Vista. What we've worked on, I've been on this project for over 4 years, hired by everybody that works, that owns property around the Tecolote station. With a $2 billion investment, one of the priorities that I think have been set up by Sandag and by MTTD and the city is to find ways to get density in these transit stops. So we've got 2 locations in Linda Vista, which is great. The Napa property down by Friars Road and the Tecolote property up on West Morena and Tecolote. One of the great things about the West Morena property is that we've got about 20 acres of the property owners. And you can see on this diagram, it is kind of the geographic center in the western part of Linda Vista. Here's all the property owners that have come together and have all retained me. We've got every property owner in this 20-acre parcel that I'm representing, and they've come together to help master plan what a vision could be with this kind of zoning to redevelop this 20 acres. And here, again, these are the different parcels. You've got...
Sir, if I can stop you for just 1 second.
Sure.
Your chest is bumping into that. You might want to move to the other microphone. It might be a little easier.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Is this better? Oh, sorry. So this particular location, again, shows Jerome's and the old Toys R Us and all of the other properties that are within this 20 acres. Again, we have some zoning summaries in there that's in the EIR. We have some case studies of how this can be redeveloped into a community center with the amenities that currently aren't there. We can put in neighborhood retail. We can put in pocket parks, some open space, some dog parks. This can be an actual gathering spot for the western part of Linda Vista. And again, just some more case studies. Again, as we were talking about and what's in the EIR is that we wanted to address connect, animate, variety, and environment. So this particular master plan concept, this is not a design. This is how you incorporate the kind of density that's in the EIR and in the city planning department's recommendation for this particular location. We can get about 1,200 to 1,400 units in here of combination of market rate and affordable homes. Here again, it shows you some of the open space. We could have pocket parks. We can do community events in here. There can be museums, outdoor retail. Here's a diagram of how this can fit into this particular 20 acres. And we step the property back. Remember, this is West Morena, not Morena. So there's no residences across the street or to the south. To the north is Tecolote Overpass. So this is an isolated area, not adjacent to residential. This is, again, this has the ability to be a trolley stop and create a location for bikes and outdoor retail. And as an example of how this can work, here's a kind of a diagram that shows the vistas from the heights. And if you're, like anybody that lives in a neighborhood, if you have a 1 or 2 story home across the street, you really can't see over that if you're right next to them. So the farther away you go and go up, the views open up. So we're really not blocking any views at the lower part of this, going up higher. And this gives you another diagram. We've superimposed in the center of this what a 90-foot height would be all the way across. And then again, as Jim Lamattery had done earlier, he put the 90-foot balloon up on the property. And it's hard to see in here, but it's in the packet that the 90-foot balloon is red. And in that red location, our property is it's not blocking any views. So in this case, here it shows you again how our master plan would be superimposed, what the view corridor would be at different locations up in the heights. And then here's an example of where the unique stone place is right now and what that could be transformed into as far as a community amenity. So I think the bottom line here is that by putting in the density first and foremost, you got to look at the economics. You could put a lot of different overlays on this, but if you want to see a village and if you want to see the kind of density that gets about 1,400 units with about 80,000 square feet of community neighborhood retail, as well as some office and storage facilities on this master plan, this is the kind of density it's going to take to make this happen. So just in quick summary, we have to be smart about how the economics work. If we put too many restrictions, this plan won't work. There's no incentive for the property owners to tear down their very performing, highly economically viable projects that are there now and just put in a project that's not affordable. So you have to look at the reasonable balance. I think that's what we're trying to say. Once you exceed the reasonable balance, there's no incentive for the property owners to tear this down. They'll keep this property here for another 20 or 30 years. What a waste to put a trolley, a $2 billion trolley, and not take advantage of getting the kind of density in here and creating a community center by superimposing economic restrictions that will not make this viable. So I think that's the big underlying factor here. First, there's a way to do this. It's a win-win-win for everybody, but it can't be. We've already incorporated in the existing inclusionary housing economics into this, and there's probably a little bit of flex in there, but to go beyond 15%, this won't work. And we've had the London Motor Economic Group do their pro formas on this. We've worked with other economic groups. We've worked with residential developers. They won't do it. It's not economically viable. So I'm just trying to reinforce the fact that you have an opportunity to approve something that's going to benefit, A, those that live in the region and reinforce the investment on the trolley, and B, create a great community amenity with a community center that they currently don't have. You go to the western part of Linda Vista, and there's no place to hang out. There's no community center. This will create that. So with that, I thank you very much and would encourage you to support the Planning Department's recommendation for approval on this plan. Thank you very much.
Our next speakers are Sharon Gell, followed by Jason Zaccardi, followed by Susan Baldwin.
My name's Sharon Gale. I support this plan. We need more housing in San Diego where it should be to fight climate change, next to the trolley stations. Don't play games by adding restrictions on this housing that will result in it not being built. If things don't pencil out, it doesn't get built, you don't have more housing, you don't have increased property values and increased taxes. We talked about wanting to capture increases in property tax value for the city. You already have a plan that does that. It's called property taxes. And it won't happen if you put so many restrictions on a project that it doesn't pencil out. We've seen this happen with other community plans. We saw this happen in Uptown with the 1988 plan. The street in my area, Raynard Way, nothing was built for 30 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jason Zaccardi, followed by Susan Baldwin, followed by Carol Kim.
Hello again, a long day. Thank you so much for your time. Again, my name is Jason. I'm a resident of West Claremont over on Mount Abbey, so only a few miles from this area. I spoke in support of Balboa. This is also close to me, also important to me, so I was speaking in favor of the Morena area as well. I won't repeat all my points, but I want to reiterate that plans like this, with all the homes that we plan to add, really would allow us to keep an entire generation from being pushed out of the city, as Councilmember Sherman mentioned of his kids earlier, in addition to allowing us to meet our climate goals. So I actually didn't know about all the bike lane stuff. That was a great presentation. Thank you. And those actually look amazing as well. My wife and I used to live near protected bike lanes, used to bike together all the times. Now we don't. Claremont isn't. There are a few lanes, but they're a little terrifying, and she refuses to go biking. And I don't blame her. So some of the stuff that we saw with the 3 lanes and the parking, we've tried coding our city with parking and traffic, and we know that doesn't work. And seeing protected bike lanes that I could kind of cruise down to this neighborhood center seemed great. Thank you.
Susan Baldwin, followed by Carol Kim, followed by Malika Marsden.
Thank you, Susan Baldwin, again representing Progress San Diego and We the People. Again, I'm happy to see this specific plan that I actually worked on as a planner at Sandag come forward today. I'd like to make 2 points, however. One, I strongly urge you to include a 15% inclusionary requirement that has been discussed and proposed. This should have been also, in my opinion, applied to the Balboa specific plan as well. As Council President Gomez stated, the city should do land value recapture analysis for all increases in density. And this is a point I've made actually on several occasions at public meetings over the past year. Also, as a bicyclist who has become more and more spooked when I'm out riding my bicycle, and I've actually ridden it down here from Kensington a couple of times in the past couple of months, I also urge you to approve the three-lane road design for Morena Boulevard to help make biking safer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Kim, followed by Malika Marsden, followed by Ravi Gopinathan.
Good afternoon, Carol Kim, San Diego County Building and Construction Trades Council. We strongly support the Morena Community Specific Plan, in particular with the 15% inclusionary affordable housing rate. And as a board member of the Climate Action Campaign, we also support connecting the Rose Canyon Bicycle Trail to the San Diego River Bicycle Trail and the future cycle track along the Pacific Highway to downtown. Biking infrastructure is key to the type of mobility we want to see and the mode share shift along with meeting our GHG and climate goals. So thank you so much, and we encourage you to support this plan. Thank you.
Malika Marsden, followed by Ravi Gopinathan, followed by Ashley Harrington.
Good afternoon, Malika Marsden with Climate Action Campaign. Climate Action Campaign supports adoption of Morena Corridor Specific Plan. Land use shifts to reduce commute distances and make it easier to access transit are critical to meeting our Climate Action Plan goals. We urge you to include the 15% inclusionary affordable housing, as affordable housing near transit is a proven climate strategy. We also strongly support staff's recommendation to keep the 3-lane rather than the 4-lane collector configuration. Making Morena a 4-lane collector instead of a planned 3 lanes would eliminate the opportunity for a widened sidewalk along Morena, eliminate the buffer between the planned cycle track and parked cars, and increase exposure for cyclists and pedestrians crossing Morena. Safety and comfort are key factors that drive the decision whether to walk, bike, or drive, and sacrificing the safety and comfort of cyclists and pedestrians for the sake of an additional car lane on Morena would mean sacrificing biking and walking trips. Thank you very much.
Ravi Gopinathan, followed by Ashley Harrington, and then Isabel Kay.
Hello, City Council. Thank you for your time again. My name is Ravi Gopinathan. I wanted to speak in support of this plan, the Morena specific plan. I support the 3-lane connector, as other people have said, and keeping a bike lane, a protected bike lane along Morena Boulevard. So right now, Morena Boulevard is very car-oriented, and this plan would make it less so with a wider sidewalk and more shade trees, I believe, and this encourages development, and we need more housing. The alternative is to not build any housing, so some housing is better than nothing, and it's proven that if you build housing near transit, you get more ridership, and if you don't have any housing near the transit station, you're building a trolley station right there, then it might be like not utilizing the fact that you're having the transit system.
Okay. Ashley Harrington, followed by Isabel Kay, and then we'll move to our final group of speakers in opposition, beginning with Helen Antoniak.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Harrington, and I'm a graduate of the University of San Diego. I've spent so much of my time in this area since I moved here, and I want to see additional density, transit, and investments in this area. We know that the trolley investment of $2.1 billion will be maximized if we densify and add housing near good jobs in UTC and downtown. We know that we will see additional ridership if we add housing and amenities along this line, and I can tell you as somebody that lived in that area for a long time, so many of those industrial underdeveloped properties could be maximized. I live in Mission Valley along the Green Line where we haven't maximized the use of our trolley, and I hope we don't make the same mistake with the Blue Line extension. Multi-story, multi-family, good housing should come to this area. Thank you for your time.
Isabel Kay, followed by Helen Antoniak, followed by Michael Hunsaker. Helen here? Okay. Michael Hunt, are you Helen? I'm Helen. Come on up. And is Kathy Addard here? Kathy's giving you time. Kathy, thank you. You've got 2 minutes.
Has anybody else heard that sitting is the new smoking? I really feel sorry. This has been 2 hours and 38 minutes. Please feel free to stand up and stretch while I'm talking. I'm just feeling so badly for you right now. You don't want to, okay. Please don't take my sunshine away. Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. Today I'm begging you to heed Winston Churchill's cautionary message. Please learn from San Diego's history. I'm a happy resident of Overlook Heights, a community not too different today than De Anza Trailer Harbor was in 2003. That year, the city's 50-year lease of the property was up and residents were expected to move out. It took 13 years and very expensive lawsuits before the last resident vacated the De Anza Trailer Harbor. From 2016 until now, nobody has been able to enjoy that waterfront property. Recently, you authorized Capland by the Bay to dispose of the deteriorating, asbestos-ridden mobile homes and then rent spaces to vacationers with motorhomes. Campland will hold the lease until 2026. I consider this whole debacle poor planning and poor use of bayfront property. Now let's talk about my special community, Overlook Heights. If you increase the height limitation in our neighborhood, you will literally be taking our sunshine away. At the very time that California is advocating less use of energy at 4 o'clock, Overlook Heights will be overshadowed by tall buildings. Our solar panels will no longer convert sunshine into clean energy, and we will have to turn our lights on rather than enjoy natural sunlight. Please don't take our sunshine away.
Michael Hunsaker, followed by Irene Magallanes, followed by Claudia Hunsaker.
Mike Hunsaker, my wife and I own property just off the Morena Boulevard. The plan to make this a mass transit corridor is built on speculation. Mounting evidence is that it does not work. Even the big Pasadena plan called for a lot of parking so people could come into the area to spend money. It did not generate money. Further, there is no plan as to how to build these things. Why are we going ahead on speculation with something that should have been resolved years ago? Then there's the other issue. How do you make the community affordable if you have unfeathered mass transit operating expenses which run well over the infrastructure costs? Thank you.
Irene Magallanes, followed by Claudia Hunsaker, followed by Felicity Stanowski.
Hello, thank you. My concern about this development is that with 3,300 approximate units in the right before Overlook Heights, Tecolote area, you're saying that you guys have voted to put 0 parking spaces in there. If only half of those people in those units, and I'm not assuming that there's 1 person per unit, I'm looking at 2 people per unit, so we're still looking at 3,300 cars. Where are those vehicles going to go? One gentleman earlier had mentioned that he loved this system, that his son went to SDSU. That's great. I would like to ask that gentleman if he owns a car, because I live in that neighborhood, and parking is already very tight. And are the people who live in that area not going to be able to register a car because there's no parking spaces there for them? So I ask that you can postpone this until maybe a ridership study is done, which we've requested before and have never received. So if you would please postpone until we get more information. Thank you.
Claudia Hunsaker, followed by Felicity Sinoski, followed by Margaret Schmidt.
Good afternoon, Council President Gomez and fellow City Council members. My husband and I do co-own a home in Bay Park. It was built in 1940. And I wonder if any of you have gone through Bay Park, along Chicago Street, along Denver, where the current elementary school is, and seen this neighborhood. We're not against growth by any means, but we're for responsible growth. Growth that isn't going to take our ability to drive our neighborhoods, walk our neighborhoods, talk to our friends. And my concern is very real. I have not seen anything in the printed Morena-specific corridor plan that says that Bay Park and Claremont height limits are going to stay at 30 feet.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Felicity Sinoski, followed by Margaret Schmidt, followed by Jose Cervantes. And Ms. Sinoski, you have time donated by Colleen Garcia. Is Colleen here? Thank you. Fran Marsh, Ryan Huntridge, Ann Ryan, Grant Tiem Jr., Larry Seitz, Richard Garcia, Daleen Mon, Ann Newell, good. Richard Ybarra, is Richard here? Okay. Rick Manley, good. Eric Cullen, Matthew Taylor, good. And Barbara Bonner. You've got 14 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Felicity Sinoski on behalf of Morena United. It's been a long afternoon. So who is Morena United? It's a community of residents directly impacted by the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. Notwithstanding these impacts, the input of Morena United has been ignored by the Planning Department, and it has been ignored by the Planning Commission. That set the course for where we are today. Morena United has retained Everett Delano, whose law practice and area of expertise is land use, and an air quality expert who has reviewed the EIR. Through this representation and expert opinion, Morena United contends that the EIR is inadequate and subject to be set aside by a court of law. Excuse me. Comment letters and supporting documentation have been provided to the council members. I'd first like to highlight Mr. Delano's letter where he sets forth why the plan is proposed, as proposed, is inadequate under CEQA. In brief, the plan fails to mitigate significant impacts, the plan fails to mitigate foreseeable impacts, and the plan fails to address a reasonable range of alternatives. Secondly, the air quality report. This is a highly technical document, and its supporting documents are also before council members. I'd like to dive into 3 points and make note of a few details. So the air quality report points out that the EIR underestimates the emissions associated with the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. The EIR states that daily emissions of 852 pounds per day of volatile organic chemicals will be emitted, but in fact the actual VOC emissions under the Morena Corridor Specific Plan are 935 pounds per day. This exceeds the San Diego Air Pollution Control District's threshold. Similarly, the EIR underestimates the amount of carbon monoxide that would be emitted under the plan. It states that there would be 2,211 pounds per day of carbon monoxide, but the actual emissions would be 2,359 pounds. This again exceeds the district thresholds. My second point, or actually the second point taken from the air quality report, is that the EIR fails to implement feasible, available mitigation measures. SECRA requires the lead agency to mitigate or avoid significant environmental impacts and to identify all mitigation measures or alternatives to reduce the impacts to below a level of significance. Here, the EIR fails to identify such mitigation measures and instead states significant air quality impacts are unavoidable. Morena United's air quality report identifies some mitigation measures that were not even considered, let alone analyzed, by the EIR. Thirdly, the EIR fails to evaluate the public health risk caused by diesel particulate matter due to building adjacent to the freeway. The California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB, advises against siting sensitive land uses within 500 feet of a major freeway. The Planning Department failed to prepare a health risk assessment for new sensitive receptors that will be present on site. The EIR attempts to justify these omissions by claiming that CARB recommendations are only advisory. But by failing to conduct proper study, alarmingly, the EIR also runs afoul of the recommendation by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment to evaluate plan-related cancer risks. So, the EIR, or the inadequacy of the EIR, is largely based upon the density and building heights proposed by the plan. And I want to take this opportunity to be clear. Morena United is not a NIMBY organization. Morena United accepts reasonable growth and stands for density with dignity. By contrast, the Morena Corridor Specific Plan, as proposed, envisions excessive building heights and dwelling units per acre, equivalent of over 6,000 additional units in a very compact area. As proposed, the plan does not exemplify density with dignity, but exacerbates infrastructure concerns related to water and sewer, park and recreational facilities, increased traffic, including Morena Boulevard, which should not lose any lanes, fire and life safety, where there are no new or expanded facilities included in the plan, and particularly where the Tecolote, aka Jerome site, is concerned. There is no density with dignity, where, despite what the representation was earlier, the developer is planning an ocean view luxury enclave. This flies in the face of the City of Villages and CAP. Indeed, there are no studies to support that market rate and ocean view luxury residences support transit ridership, or that less cars will be utilized because of the enclave's proximity to a transit station. In fact, studies show exactly the opposite, that market rate and high-end units have greater levels of emissions and a bigger carbon footprint. It is more than likely that more cars, more traffic, more overspill parking in surrounding neighborhoods will result under the plan as proposed. Morena United contends that the true intent of CAP's policies are not achieved in a plan that encourages market rate and luxury enclaves for the very simple reason that their inhabitants are not going to give up their cars. To deal with these problems, Morena United has taken up a position on density and building heights. In cooperation with the Linda Vista Planning Group, Morena United views 54 dwelling units to the acre and 45-foot building heights as reasonable growth and responsible planning for the area. This is the so-called low-density alternative in the Morena Corridor Specific Plan. It calls for an additional 3,780 units, still a very significant number. Lower density means less stress on infrastructure, less traffic, less greenhouse gas emissions than what is currently proposed. The low-density alternative provides better opportunity for middle incomes and the so-called missing middle that we heard a lot about earlier this week, because lower buildings are less expensive to build than ocean view high-rises, which means greater cost savings and affordability, which should be passed on to residents. I'd like to point out that the height limit of the low-density alternative was once fully endorsed by the Planning Department. Less than 1 year ago, on September 17, 2018, the Planning Department, through its director, removed the Transit-Oriented Development Enhancement, or TODE, provisions from the plan, which allow for 100-foot and 65-foot building heights. It properly directed building heights to be reduced to 45 feet in the plan. However, in a bad faith breach of public trust and confidence, the planning department reneged. Clearly, the planning department is engaged in politics and not planning. All planning politics aside, the low-density alternative increases intensity of use from what's currently allowed, 29 dwelling units, up to 54 dwelling units per acre, but it mitigates emissions and infrastructure concerns. It reflects the greatest opportunity for a range of housing, affordable housing and missing middle housing to be built. It permits an opportunity for true diversity and the studied symbiotic relationship between diverse neighborhoods and successful transit. It respects the existing community, and conversely, it resists the negative consequences of gentrification, such as high rents and displacement, all of which is density with dignity. The city cannot deny that the low-density alternative meets its goals under the City of Villages and CAP policies. For all of the reasons stated today and submitted by way of comment letters from the community, the Linda Vista Planning Group, legal counsel, the air quality expert, Morena United vigorously opposes the plan as presented and disputes the adequacy of the EIR. The City Council should send this plan back with direction to propose the low-density alternative. It should recirculate the EIR and reject the statement of overriding considerations contained in Exhibit B, as this is an illusory shield and a veiled attempt to move the the Morena Corridor specific plan through without adequate study and consideration of feasible mitigation or alternatives. In conclusion, the plan does not comply with CEQA. Therefore, Morena United urges you, 1, to reject the plan and the EIR, and 2, recommit the plan to the Planning Department with directions. In short, we urge you to adopt density with dignity.
Margaret Schmidt, followed by Jose Cervantes. Margaret.
Good afternoon, Margaret Schmidt. I served as chair of Claremont's Morena Corridor Subcommittee. I want to say that I support CAP and the concept of TOD, but it is imperative that a transit priority area be considered as a half-mile walking distance from a transit stop, not as a circle on a map or as a crow flies. There are many locations where a freeway or canyon lies between a quiet residential area and a current or future transit stop, preventing easy access and thus transit use. The two plans today, along with the Claremont Plan update, will together add over 12,000 dwelling units to this corridor. While I support safe bicycle infrastructure, I ask you to please defer changes to this major roadway until it can be addressed during the Claremont Plan update process, when all of the added housing and traffic from all three plans will be considered in the configuration of Morena Boulevard. Also, a safe pedestrian bicycle overpass connecting the community to Mission Bay Park is critical for our already park-to-mission community. Please require addition of stronger language similar to in Balboa Station Plan.
And then our final speaker is a speaker in favor, Mr. Jose Cervantes.
Good afternoon again. Thank you. I just want to speak in support of the plan as is, the density, the new height restrictions, and also the mobility element. When it comes to the bike lane, the cycle track on Morena Boulevard, I urge the council not to sacrifice pedestrian and cyclist safety over the inconvenience of some of the residents in the area. Somebody mentioned earlier looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the global problem, climate change, and the citywide problem, and actually statewide problem, of the housing crisis. That is the bigger picture. Thank you.
And then I will note for the record that there were 5 individuals who filled out slips in favor and 4 in opposition. They did not need to speak, but I will retain these as part of the meat file for this item in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to council member comments or questions, starting with council member Campbell.
Thank you. This action is incredibly important to our city and to the communities of Bay Park and Linda Vista in my district. It's taken years to get to this point, countless meetings between residents and city staff to bring this document forward, and yet, even at this final point, my constituents stand on the outside of the process as others decide the direction of their neighborhood for the next 30 years. Sadly, there have been promises made to the residents from this building only to be rescinded once political expediency is no longer necessary. This community wants development with beautification in this corridor. The community wants housing opportunities that will allow the next generations of Americans to pursue the American dream. This community is worried that their voices have been ignored and that their community will be sold off to luxury developers. So I will move staff's recommendation with the following 3 amendments to ensure that issues that the community has consistently raised are resolved so before we finalize this document. First, the First Amendment, I ask that we use the 4-lane configuration for Morena Boulevard. This will ease traffic congestion concerns for our community. We will still have enough space for protected Class 1 or Class 4 bike lanes to meet climate goals, and we will lose a minimal amount of parking spaces, to be exact, only 36 along that part of Morena. Number 2, in regard to inclusionary housing, affordable housing, I would like to include 15%, the following requirement for Tecolote Village and Morena Station districts as SDR-13. I have to read this whole thing legally. Tecolote Village District and Morena Station District. Inclusionary housing requirement, a minimum of 15% of the total dwelling units in a proposed residential or mixed-use development of 10 or more dwelling units shall be set aside as affordable to and occupied by median income households, which are defined as any household whose income does not exceed the median income as adjusted for household size as defined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the San Diego Standard Metropolitan Statistical Area. All other inclusionary affordable housing regulations as set forth in Chapter 14, Article 2, Division 13 of the Land Development Code shall apply, including the alternative methods of compliance with this requirement. And the third amendment, I ask the council to reduce the discretionary maximum height within the Tecolote Village from 100 feet down to 65 feet. And in the Morena Village, the discretionary height will be a maximum of 45 feet. And I would like to see if there's anyone who will second my motion. I will. Thank you.
Council President Pro Tempore.
So first of all, thank you to everyone who came today, and I appreciate Mr. Wayne, I don't see you here, and oh, there you are, and Mr. Lamattery for emphasizing the importance of affordable housing in this community so that San Diegans of all income levels are able to live in this transit priority area. My goal is a balanced community in which a diverse group of San Diegans live together. And this is what we have in District 1 and Pacific Highlands Ranch, a future urbanizing area where 20% of all the new units in the community are affordable. And I'm not sure how to accomplish this today. So the amendment that Dr. Campbell made, does that require that the 15% affordable be built in the community?
It's my understanding that the motion as proposed would be for on-site. However, it would allow for the alternative methods of compliance, including the in lieu fee.
So could you answer me about Pacific Highlands Ranch? So I believe there the housing units have to be built in the community. Is that the in lieu fee is not acceptable?
I don't know that specifically. I think that was in that.
It was in the ballot measure that the voters passed. Yeah.
Okay. You could include that as part of the motion, that all of the off-site units, if they were going to do alternative means of compliance by doing off-site, that it be provided in the either the specific plan or the community.
Okay. So so I'd like to. First of all, I understand that thank you. I understand landowners can just keep property the way it is. We can't force them to build units. And Mr. Dealey, could I ask you a question? So I'm sorry I missed part of your presentation because I was in the back talking to the city attorney about how we could ensure that affordable gets built on site. So what I'd like to know is, when you said 15% affordable was doable, did you mean it was doable on site, or that it would be, or you would prefer to pay the in lieu fee?
Well, as you know, Council President Pro Tem, that we're in a concept mode right now. And the reality is when we're ready to go to market, when we're ready to actually formalize a development plan, we'd like to have as much flexibility with a cap. So if your cap is 15%, and we had some flexibility, and I'm not sure what the percentage is of the average medium income, the AMI on that. I wasn't sure based on that code, Councilmember Campbell, what that equated to. But do you know what percentage of AMI that has you quoted? What that was?
I'd like to know too. So. 80%?
80%. Yeah, 80% AMI at 15% max. We would be able to incorporate that on site and had planned on doing that, quite frankly.
Okay.
We had planned to do a combination, and we represented that to the community, but deaf ears, unfortunately. But we had represented that. We wanted to do a community-based plan. And we have, as I outlined, the retail and the mixed use to then achieve some of the public benefits like open space and community park and things of that nature.
So you're okay with Dr. Campbell's amendment, which would be, I would like to make sure that her amendment requires the 15% affordable in the two specific parts of the community that she referenced.
Can I just clarify one quick thing?
Sure.
The only way our plan would work was to allow up to 90 feet. And if you just cap it at 65, we would provide virtually no public amenities, because the taller buildings then create more open space at the base. Mm-hmm. So that's the advantage of it. If you want just a wall of project, go up to USD on Linda Vista Road, where that project was developed, and it's just wall to wall, about 45 feet of height. And there's no open space, no public amenities. It's just a wall. That's what would be created. If you allow us to go 65 feet, we wouldn't have to put in these amenities. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of quality of creating a village versus an arbitrary cap that's not reasonable. Even with the 90 or 100 feet, we still would have to process that. So it would still have to meet quality urban design. It wouldn't be an absolute guarantee. We would be able to create with the community and with the city, and would come back as a planning commission approval to come up with a plan that worked well and had the amenities. But just not allowing that just pretty much torpedoes it, and we'd probably have to not build the housing there, quite frankly.
So you think if it was 65 feet, you wouldn't build, you would just keep the existing uses?
We analyzed it, and that's what we came up with. That's why we did the diagram showing how you could step it up. West Morena would be a cap at 45 feet, and as you went back to the train tracks, and by the way, the topography drops off even more as you go towards the train tracks. So in the distance going from West Morena to where we had the 90-foot tower is the deepest part of the master plan. So really, it creates some urban quality having the different heights of the buildings capped at the 90 feet. But if you start changing that and say a max at 65, Ginsler, who we hired to do the master plan, it doesn't work.
So you would just leave the land as is?
We would leave it as is.
You wouldn't? Okay.
Well, it wouldn't be a viable project, unfortunately.
Right. So that's the Jerome's Furniture site. It would just stay.
The Jerome's and the big boxes, the warehouses, and it's a big box retail that, quite frankly, that's not a great place for it nowadays. It was.
So it wouldn't be worth it to you to build anything residential with 65 feet?
Why would the property owners lose the kind of revenue they're getting off the retail they have there now to try to put some kind of housing that doesn't make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really based on economics, and that's where we started with the planning department. We started with economics and worked backwards from there. What would it take to achieve a quality mixed-use urban design? And we have examples of what that can look like with the amenities for the community. So they have outdoor cafes, they can have a dog park, they can have a little community center, we can have concerts in there.
And with that height limit, you can do 15% on-site affordable?
Yes, correct.
On-site. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. I do not see anybody else on the lights. So we will have, there is a motion. It's been seconded by Council President Pro Tem Bree. And I don't know if we landed on the percentage of the AMI, 15% at
So I just want to clarify. I think I seconded something that doesn't require on-site affordable. Does her amendment require on-site affordable? Okay, I'm going to amend her motion, and maybe she'll accept it, and maybe she won't. So I will second your motion if you will accept the following amendment, except that the only alternative method of compliance is construction or rehabilitation of units off-site as set forth in section 142.1307 in ordinance number 0-2020-1 within the community plan area. Italicized terms in ordinance number 0-2020-01 shall have the meaning set forth in the San Diego Municipal Code section 113.0103 and in ordinance number 0-2020-1. My goal is affordable units in the community.
Thank you for that. So the motion of the maker?
Yes, I agree with that amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's make sure that that amendment gets reflected. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole amendment because staff was talking to me. So. We're getting close to the motion, so let's just wait for a second. So as we're waiting for the motion to be typed, I do have a question related to the 4-lane amendment. What would that, will there be an impact to the cycle track?
Just one moment, please.
We're putting it up.
Okay, so we'll have to just verbally describe it for you.
So I'd like to ask Claudia Brizuela to elaborate on some of the potential impacts of the reconfiguration to a 4-lane.
Go ahead.
Hi, Claudia Brizuela, Associate Traffic Engineer. So with the 4-lane in constrained areas, the buffer would be reduced to minimum width, which is about 3 feet. And there would be parking that would be eliminated to maintain 4 lanes, a 2-way left turn lane, and the cycle track.
So can you be a little bit more specific in terms of what is the length of the area that gets impacted? Because you're saying there's a narrow, if I'm understanding correctly, so what are we talking about?
The street width varies throughout the entire corridor. I don't have the exact length that would be. Oh, we can actually point to the screen here. So if you look in the boxed areas, those are the areas where we have constrained right-of-way. I don't know if it's visible to you. I can maybe let you know what the segments are.
Can we get a copy of that?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a copy? It's really hard to see from over here.
So one of the things I can do, we don't have a printed copy right now. We can provide
Okay.
a copy. Okay.
Just seems like it's a significant change, so I would like to understand it a little bit better. I have a copy.
This involves removal of only 36 parking spaces. And besides, if we have the 4 lanes and we end up getting huge amounts of bicycle traffic, we can always reconfigure it to 3.
Council President, I can give you the specific information based on this slide. So it would be approximately 10 parking spaces on the west side of Morena between Ashton Street and Littlefield Street, approximately 38 parking spaces between Savannah Street and Vega Street, and approximately 26 parking spaces between Asher Street and Morena, West Morena, Northern Split.
Okay, so this is the 4-lane.
That's correct. So under the 4-lane configuration, this would require the removal of the parking spaces that Alyssa
That were
just
listed.
mentioned.
Okay, so, but we can still insert the track.
Yes, you remove the permanent separation, which in the exhibit that we show here, it could be a raised median, it could be something of a curb or otherwise. With the other, with 4 lanes, you have only bollards.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I believe we do have the motion. I appreciate that. Thank you for walking me through it. So we have a copy of the motion, so please vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
And that motion fails 7-2 with Council Members Bree and Campbell voting in favor, and Council President Gomez, Council Members Ward, Montgomery, Kersey, Kate, Sherman, and Moreno voting no.
I would like to make a new motion in this case, and the new motion would be without the change in the height limits, but with the other 2 things included. And
inclusionary 15% at
15% inclusionary as amended by Councilmember Bree, and also the 4 lanes, which, as you may notice on the map that the city planners presented, there is no metrics as to how wide what they have on their little drawing is. And if you take away the 2 directional bike lanes, which we now have 1% of San Diegans riding bikes, So we may not need two-direction bike lane. Plus, you have bike lane on both sides of Morena, which you also may not need. Plus, you have very wide sidewalks, which you also can reduce. Therefore, we can have either Class 1 or Class 4 bike lanes that are protected more so, and we can have them in a 4-lane situation. We who live there know how bad the congestion is there now, and we need to have 4 lanes, especially if you're going to put in this many more people and people riding the trolley and coming in their cars to park and ride. So that's why we're going with the 4 lanes.
So the motion is to keep the height limits with the amendment of the 15% at trying to get to an AMI reference. Since the previous motion does not make reference to any percentage or an AMI.
The previous motion includes requirement of 15% affordable housing of the total dwelling units. That's number 2 of the previous motion. So the new motion would include the 4-lane configuration on Morena and the 15% inclusionary housing.
By median income households.
By median income households.
15%.
15.
At what AMI?
Median income. So
there's a reference to it. We can do 50, 60, 80 to 100.
Okay,
That's what I'm
by
trying
definition, 120% of the urban development for the San Diego Standard Metropolitan Statistical Area. The latest numbers I saw from the Housing Commission were $86,400 for a family of 4. But I have seen 3 different numbers, so I'm not sure which one is the HUD number.
Okay, I see the city attorney.
Thank you. So the median income definition that was included in the motion is the median income definition that was included in the inclusionary housing ordinance that was introduced on Tuesday. So we linked that up to use that same definition. If you look at, I believe it's the 2019 calculations, that median income is $86,300.
Okay. Okay, so 15% at the reference to the AMI inclusionary. If that,
yes.
I got it. Okay. And then the 4-lane. Okay, just want to make sure. Is there a second to this motion?
Is there a second?
Councilmember Sherman.
Yeah, I think you kind of got to where I was trying to figure out what the AMI on this. Is this only median income AMI, or does it preclude you from building below median income AMI, or how does that work?
Will you please repeat the question? I'm sorry.
We're talking about median income. Does this preclude developers from going for less than median income, or? Well, I mean, we deal with AMIs around here a lot. You know, I'm trying to go, is it 80 to 120? Is it 50 to 60? Where does this fall?
As currently proposed, the regulation would be at the median income. And if they wanted to do something different as far as density bonus, they could do that. However, the requirement is for median income as written.
As defined as any household whose income does not exceed the median income as adjusted for household size. So in other words, 0 to median.
Got it. So just to make sure, up to the median income.
Up to the median.
Okay,
0%
so there could be 0
median.
up to the median income. Okay, that is clear. So we do have a second, Councilmember Ward. Council President Pro Tem Bree.
Thank you, Council President and Councilmember Campbell. Would you be willing to accept it as an amendment number 4 on the other motion, that the only alternative method of compliance is construction or rehabilitation of units off-site as set forth in section 142.1307 in Ordinance 0-2020-1 within the community plan area? italicized terms in ordinance number 0-2020-1 shall have the meaning set forth in San Diego Municipal Code Section 113.0103 and in ordinance number 0-2020-1. My goal is that the housing be built on site.
I think your goal is admirable, and I agree with it. However, I'm not sure how we're going to do on this. So let me do the right thing and accept your amendment so that we can try to make sure that this is on site. And if not, there is an alternative here that the builder can go out into the community and make up for the units within range of the new building.
Just a seconder accept the amendment as well.
Is that what is reflected in item number 3 here already?
Yes. Item 4. No, it's item 3 up there. It's item 3.
Okay, so it's reflected in the current motion. Let's land this plane.
Yes, please.
The city attorney has comments.
We are still working on the wording of the motion, and we needed to strike the last sentence that says, including the alternative methods of compliance with this requirement. We had to make sure it was limited to the ones that were stated in the motion, if that makes sense. If not, read what's on the screen, please, and make sure that that reflects your intent.
Yeah, we can't read it.
I'm old.
Can we get a copy of the draft motion? And as we're getting a copy of the draft motion, I'm just going to go through the speakers here. Mr. Ward, do you have any other additional comments?
Yes, thank you, Council President, and we will get copies passed out. I want to thank everybody for coming out here. I know that this is particularly special to those that live there, that have lived there for a generation or more, and want to make sure that the impacts are appropriately being accounted for and mitigated. And we do all this in the context of really trying to genuinely provide those housing and transit connections from a citywide perspective. And so we see this in Uptown. We see this at Balboa Area Specific Plan. We are going to be seeing a lot more opportunity in the UTC area, and it is not going to stop here at the Tecolote or the Morena corridor areas. We have a lot more opportunity sites across the city as well, and we're going to continue to work with communities to try and get those right. I want to make sure also that while we are looking at the conversations around height limits, can you remind us what the ministerial height limit is as opposed to a requirement for a discretionary process?
Are you referring to the proposed or the existing?
The proposed.
So the staff proposed height limits that for ministerial development would be up to 45 feet as written in the draft specific plan.
And so were they to be proposing any projects that had some articulation to allow you to go to 65 in Morena or 100 in Tecolote, those would go through a discretionary process, which includes additional community review?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And for clarification, because I think we weren't all on the same page here around the median income definition, essentially you're talking about a 15% at 100% AMI is the entitlement that we're putting in here. Is that correct?
I would refer to the maker of the motion.
I think I heard up to.
Up to.
Up to, yes.
Of course, they could have less than that, but they would, right.
Yes.
I feel that there could be better capacity here if we were really trying to get down to an 80% AMI. I know that is a range, median income we define from 80 to 120. I'd like to see affordability, especially for those that really rely more on transit systems, really nexus with this kind of development opportunity here. That's a preference I certainly would like to take with the maker of the motion, except 80% AMI. It stays within a median income category as defined by HUD.
Yes.
Thank you. And then I'll keep that second. And you know, with regard to the 4-lane configuration, first of all, I'll say I'm particularly excited that we are getting a dual separated bicycle track. You know, it's paint on the roads, it's a little bit of infrastructure. While I'm happy to second this motion, I do not second Dr. Campbell's comments. I do believe this will help induce additional ridership and be able to actually get more people around the community in different ways. I'd like to be able to make sure that some of the money that we put as a council into mobility measurements, into counters, will help to actually just help to validate some of the infrastructure that we're putting in here right now, and that will allow us hopefully flexibility to be even more progressive as these communities continue to build out and continue to develop. So with that, I think this is a really good next step for this area. It's going to allow us to have significant housing investments right next to the transit area, and I think that we are allowing some continued community opportunity and engagement on a lot of the development and design specifics as some of these hopefully really great looking projects move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. You okay? City Attorney, you're good. Okay.
We're still changing the wording to reflect the latest amendment.
Yes, we will get a final copy of the draft. Councilmember Kersey.
Thank you, Council President. If I could have Mr. Dealey come back up here.
Next time I'll sit in the front, sorry.
Yeah. Get your steps in this way. So as the person representing a lot of the landowners in this specific plan, could you just reaffirm, I guess, that the language in front of us, which is still being finalized, but I think we have a pretty good sense as to what is being proposed, that this would work for the folks who are going to be actually doing these projects? Namely, the 15% inclusionary on-site at 80% of AMI, the height limits being what they are in the staff recommendation, and the 4-lane configuration, which I don't know if that matters to you or not.
Yes, and that's for both sites. I'm representing property owners of both locations, the one at Napa and that village close to the Friars Road trolley station and the Tecolote station. So if we could have staff's recommendations for height in those, and then the AMI, you know, that's a tougher question, but I know you've been going back and forth from 80 to 100. This is one of the property owners, so hold on. Maybe a friendly modification that if it's on site, which I think is the goal, first and foremost, or in the community, which would be the second component. If it was on site, we would prefer to have 100% AMI. If it's in the community, then 80% AMI. Not to complicate it, but that would, we've just done all of the pro formas and the financial models to make this thing viable. And that would be kind of the litmus test. If we could achieve those, and we can provide 15% inclusionary at that rate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dealey. Appreciate that. I'll have the maker of the motion, I guess, address that issue.
Yes, 100% be okay.
Okay.
What are we saying yes to? Are we changing the AMI
We're going
now?
0 back to 100%.
No, it was 80%. He said 80% was fine in the community area.
What I think I heard Mr. Dealey say was if it's on site, it's 15%.
No, he said 100%.
100%. But if it's in the community, it can be 80%.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
With the AMI, yes.
AMI.
Okay,
yes.
good, yes.
15% would be the percentage of the housing that would fall in this category. On-site would be 100% AMI. Off-site in the community would be 80% AMI.
That's reasonable, yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I'm having a somewhat difficult time trying to reconcile this inclusionary discussion with the one we had 2 days ago, because it seems like some things that are okay today were not okay 2 days ago, and I don't fully understand why, but I guess what I don't want to do is be having this discussion on every single one of these that comes forward to us in the next however long. I mean, we're here today having this discussion, but I don't know how many more of these planning departments bringing forward. I mean, these are a good idea, but do we have a bunch of these in the pipeline? We have a bunch of these in the pipeline.
We have the Mission Valley Community Plan update targeting for September. And Kearney Mesa, we don't have a specific month that we're targeting, but that plan update would come within 6 months of that. So
Okay.
we also are looking forward to having clear citywide regulations, and I think that may have happened on Tuesday.
Okay. One final question from me. Related to the previous item where I asked a question about the infrastructure finance plans, or the PFFPs, as we used to call them, we've heard a lot from the community about concerns about infrastructure being in place before a lot of the development happens. Given that this is a DIF community, oftentimes the money takes a lot longer to get in there. Has staff looked at the possibility of doing an enhanced infrastructure financing district, since there's going to be since this is more of a redevelopment than an infill, which potentially means there's going to be a lot more property tax increment that is generated over the course of the next 30 years. I'm just curious, obviously that's not before us today, but in terms of addressing the infrastructure issue, much like we did the EIFD down in Otay Mesa to help spur development, I'm wondering if that is a possibility that we could look at for this area, for the one we just did, as well as potentially for sports arenas, since those are kind of three big redevelopment projects.
We did not look at that in this instance, but we have looked at it in other places in the city where we're undergoing planning initiatives. It works in Otay Mesa for some reasons that are unique to that area. We feel that the legislation that enables the EIFD could be improved to have it be working better for us. And I'd refer to Tom Tomlinson if you have further questions on some of the constraints and why it doesn't really provide the benefit that we would like it to provide.
Okay. Well, Mr. Tomlinson, you and I can talk about this offline. I don't want to bog this discussion down. And if there are changes to state law, I would like us to work with maybe Senator Atkins, who sponsored this bill initially, to see how we could make that work better for projects like this, where we do have a deficiency of infrastructure, and the community would like to see some of those needs addressed before the development comes. But thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Morena.
Just a quick question. Is the in lieu fee a form of compliance? As the motion stands, maybe that's for the city attorney.
As currently drafted, no.
That was my question. Thank you.
Councilmember Kate.
Stay there, please. 2 questions. Given what we just adopted on Tuesday, would this proposal be in lieu of what we adopted, and there would not be, it would supersede the citywide ordinance that we just adopted, or would it be in addition to?
The requirement for the 15% and the alternative means of compliance would be in lieu of what you just looked at on Tuesday.
And then my second question is, from my understanding, I thought we were legally required to offer an alternative compliance and legally required to offer the in lieu fee. So you're now saying that we don't need to do that?
You do need to include an alternative compliance,
So
and you
be...
are with the affordable
Gotcha.
offsite.
Thank you.
Do not see any council members on the lights, and we will take 1-2 minutes to get the wording of this motion correctly. Councilmember Campbell.
Sorry. Just one question. I thought what we're passing here is specific to the Morena Corridor specific plan.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't go in the place of what we passed Tuesday.
Correct. I
Okay.
think that's understood.
Just want to clarify.
Yes. No, that's understood. So we're going to take a 2-minute break and get the motion correct. Okay, so we're going to convene the meeting again. I believe the motion, do we have a copy of the motion? Okay, and I believe the city attorney has clarification comments.
Thank you, Council President. We wanted to clarify for the record that what you're considering adopting today would only apply in the Morena Corridor Specific Plan area. If the inclusionary ordinance that was introduced this past Tuesday is ultimately adopted, that would apply in the rest of the city.
Great. We are all clear. There's a motion. Councilmember Sherman.
With the clarification from the city attorney, that means unless we do this all over again with every other community plan that's coming forward.
True.
Thank you.
So we do have a motion on the floor. It's been second. Please vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
And that passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. And as you're exiting, please do note that we're still in session. We do not have any adjournments in memory. We will now adjourn council to the next regularly scheduled council meeting on Monday, August 5th, 2019 at 2 p.m. This meeting's adjourned.